I'm now on my 12th day of my tour around northern Spain. I've got to the Costa del Morte, Coast of Death, and I saw why it's called that today. Lots of sheer cliffs, lots of shipwrecks. And that's basically about 2 days cycling north of Santiago. So I thought I'd hop on and give you an update of how things have gone, because I've been very bad at actually doing any YouTube related stuff. Basically, it takes too long when I'm on the road to edit a video. I arrive somewhere, I want to eat, I'm tired perhaps, and sitting down and getting a video edited just isn't happening. So I did the 2 days in. I haven't managed to do anything else so far. Possibly the ferry on the way back is when my next set are going to be done. So anyway, all that explanation and excuses aside, I'm currently having a pre-dinner drinks and snack in my hotel, because one of the challenges of cycling in Spain is that lots of places don't do food until 8 in the evening. And if you're used to eating earlier than that, it can be a little tough. And in smaller towns, there may be nothing at all available beforehand. In fact, the place I was in last night had 2 shop fronts that basically contained lots of vending machines that were selling snacks. And I presume that's because I'm not the only person who's being caught out getting somewhere at 6 o'clock, having not eaten a big lunch and not being able to wait for 2 hours. That's hazard 1. So the trip itself, the cycling has been spectacular, to put it mildly. If you're following me on Instagram, you'll have seen the photos I've been posting every day during the day, and I've posted a day-by-day text update, text photo story update. So that's eBiking I don't think you need to be on Instagram to actually look at that and be able to see what I've been posting. I'll use the text that's there as the basis for the videos when I get around to doing them. I have almost complete video footage of the whole tour. I've had the GoPro mounted on the handlebars. You know, the battery basically dies every 90 minutes or so when you have it on time lapse. So there's little gaps because I obviously don't stop and change the battery unless it's safe to do so. Sorry if I'm going 50 kilometers an hour down a hill with S-bends, I'm not going to stop instantly. But I've got lots of that footage in there anyway, so it'll be grand. Lots of variation in road surface. Again, if you followed the Instagram thing, you'll be aware that I spent one day where the road I intended to take was blocked by a landslide. There wasn't really an alternate route because it was lakeside. My hotel for the next night was way up the other side of the lake, so I had to get up and around it. One option was to backtrack about 20 kilometers and go around the other side of the lake. Didn't really fancy that, so I did the thing you should never do, which is basically get out Google Maps and see if it has any bright ideas, because Google Maps cycling directions are insane, literally insane. It loves sending you down really busy roads, but the other thing it does, and it did it in this case, is it decided it was going to route me through initially 5 kilometers of very, very rough, swampy forest track. And the thing is, I say initially 5 kilometers because when I got to that 5 kilometer mark, there was nowhere to go. The way it had indicated, well, was a complete swamp, but also was blocked off with some electric fencing. So I wasn't going to try and climb over that or something. And it was at the bottom of a steep hill that was flooded at the bottom, and it was a steep hill on the way out, and I was kind of despairing and thinking I'd be trapped forever, but the only thing you could do in that circumstance is push on or lie down and cry, but you know, then you still have to push on afterwards, so that's of limited value. So I pushed on another 5 kilometers and did find some tarmac road, which had put me quite a lot out of my way anyway, and also had put yet another mountain pass there that I had to go over. So that, for some reason, I'm telling you, the disaster, you know, but it wasn't that big a disaster. I was just very tired that night. But mostly it's been okay. There's been quite a lot of off-road cycling, both in terms of the greenways on old railway lines that I understood I was going to do. A lot of the Eurovelo 3 route, a lot more than I would have expected, follows quite rough tracks, partially because it's following the Camino route. a lot of the time, not always. And some of those really need to be resurfaced. The top surface of relatively smooth sand or mud or whatever has been washed away, and you've got the underlying gravel, which is quite bouncy. So, but there is a lot of quiet back roads with reasonable surfaces, very little traffic. Like mostly, I've been surprised at how little traffic there's been where I'm going. Like kind of quite busy main roads with nothing on them whatsoever. And I think that maybe because it's time of year, it's not really the holiday season yet. There's not that many people live in the mountains year round. I think a lot of the villages are relatively abandoned, but families maybe go back to the family village in the summer when it's warm and the mountains are cooler, and there's probably a lot more cars on the road then, so maybe that's why the infrastructure's there. Anyway, mostly this is a very good time of the year to be touring. Perhaps I'm a little bit lucky with the weather. Now, I have been soaked on 3 occasions, all 3 as I was doing the final stretch to that night's hotel. But otherwise, there hasn't really been that much rain and not much in the way of winds. It's quite cool. I would say most days I'm cycling, it's been 14 degrees and a couple of days getting up towards 16 or 18, which is grand because the sun is out quite a lot, and it means I can wear my rain jacket, which is somewhere here behind me, which is a very ultralight rain jacket that I got because to keep rain off, but actually works very well as sunscreen as well. One of the errors I made was I also have a little skull cap I got for wearing underneath my helmet. I didn't bother wearing that leaving Bilbao. And by the time I got to Burgos a day and a half later, I got sunburnt red strips, quite sunburnt red strips for the holes were in the helmet. So don't get fooled by the fact it's not that warm. You can certainly burn quite quickly. I've been dealing with that ever since. What else can I tell you? Oh, yes, mountains, lots of mountains, lots and lots and lots and lots of mountains, lots of steep mountains as well. There's quite a lot of challenging ascents and then very fast descents and spectacular scenery when you're seeing that. On the good road surfaces, that's fine. On the rougher road surfaces, it's a little bit kind of nerve-wracking. Am I going to hit a pothole? There's going to be gravel on the corner. So you tend to go slower down those. And I'm a little bit concerned about my brake pads lasting. I normally easily get 2,000 kilometers per set of pads, but there's a lot of braking, basically. A lot of braking. Overall, my plan for this trip, and it's the first time I've done it on an extended trip, was to stay in hotels rather than to camp. That's actually was a very good decision. I met another cyclist who'd been intending to camp, but he said it was just far too cold at night. And that's quite high. A lot of the time, you're at 1,000 meters or maybe even a little bit higher. So at night, it's getting down to 4 degrees. So not very practical to be camping in that. Probably further into the summer, that would be more possible. So I'm not really giving any advice on wild camping in relation to the route. The laws in Spain are different. There's a fire hazard that doesn't really exist in Ireland and Scotland much, but definitely exists in Spain in the summer. I've been here before and seen the devastation that fires cause. And I'm unaware of how aggressive police are with people wild camping. I know in many areas it's not allowed, and in other areas it seems to be more ambiguous. The only thing I'd say practically if you were doing it is, certainly on the Camino route, I'd see an awful lot of spots. You basically have little picnic spots all along the route. So I'm pretty sure on that route you'd have no real problems getting away with dusk to dawn camping. I doubt the cops are kind of turning up at 2 a.m. to check spots up the mountains. But I can't guarantee that, so that would be the risk. But part of the reason I went for hotels was I was planning the trip. I didn't know where I was going to stay, whether wild camp, official campsites or what. And I realized that hotels are kind of cheap. The lower end, particularly if you're booking in advance, there's lots of places where I've got ones for 40. The one I'm in tonight is one of the most expensive, and it's 60. I think the average for the trip would be about €50 a night, and with that you're getting a hot shower, a flush toilet, and of course e-biking. It means you can charge your batteries and there's no hassle with it. You don't have to think about it very much. You can come in, plug your battery in, leave it to charge, go out and get yourself a meal. So that part has made sense. What else? For the e-bike people, so I did 3 days in Connemara, and into 3 days in Connemara, I used those low assist modes that I've talked about that you can do with the Lion. I have a video, it's about 3 or 4 videos back in the playlist if you look for it, that talks about this. And I do a longer video on this when I'm back around and have some time, but that definitely works. So if for some reason it's hard to get a charge for a long distance, you can do these custom low assists. I'll explain my settings. Basically, though, it's 25% cutting out assist at about 18 kilometers an hour. And Connemara, which is tough cycling conditions, lots of hills, lots of rough roads, lots of wind, I was getting 220 kilometers out of a 500 watt battery. Now that's impressive, anybody who's been e-bike touring. The downside of that, and I felt it in Connemara, is the reason you're getting that is you've turned the assist way down and it's cutting out earlier. So you have to do a lot more work. So I'm not doing that in Spain. In fact, if anything, I'm doing the opposite. I've set myself a fairly punishing schedule. I'm probably doing between 80 and 90 kilometers a day. And the climbing there's a lot of it. It's definitely an average of 1,000 meters. But there's days where there's quite a few days where it's 1,600 up to 2,000. So because of that, I'm doing quite a lot of the days, particularly the later days, in tour mode. I'm not even doing them in eco mode. And I had a debate with myself as to whether or not I'd bring a second battery. I decided to do that, and I've been very happy that that's the case, because it means I can swap it over. I can sort of do a day in tour. Battery then goes flat at about 70 kilometers, I think, and then I can swap it over, and I've no problem getting to where I'm heading. That peace of mind is very important. What else? Food. Mostly been eating out. To be honest, it's so cheap in many places that it doesn't make that much sense going to the supermarket. I did a supermarket trip tonight because I wanted a snack before dinner, because dinner's not till 8 and I'm hungry. But otherwise, yeah, eating out. Cost-wise, I mean, the cheapest meal I've had, and this included an entire bottle of white wine, was I had hake and chips and a salad with a bottle of white wine for $7.50. That's ludicrously cheap. I think the most expensive was in Santiago. I posted a photo of that with my Instagram story of Santiago, where I was starving because it was a day where I hadn't been able to find anything. Just there was a lot of mountains and woodland, basically, until I got there. And by the time I did one of those things where you're hungry and you want to eat, but you can't make your mind up about where you want to eat. And eventually, I just went into a bar right by the square where the pilgrims arrive. And I initially ordered an octopus, which is one of the more expensive things to eat. And then I thought, oh, this is pretty tasty, so I'll have... I ordered beef ribs and chips. And the thing is, the kind of like those portions are set up to share. So it was really the 2-person portion I was ordering. So that and 3 glasses of wine, I think, cost me €36. But that is far, far more expensive than anything else. I mean, typically, you're more looking at 12 to 16, I think, for a proper dinner. Breakfast for €3 to €6, depending on the place. And lunches, I mean, at lunch you can get a thing called a menu del dia, which is basically 3 courses, water, wine and coffee, and that's typically about 12 quid. I did that once and then decided it was an error, because it's just too much bloody food to then try and cycle 40 kilometers on. But, you know, if you were on a tight budget, basically, you could do your menu del dia and then not bother so much with the evening. What else can I update you on? I think there's some way for you guys to ask me questions, and I can see there's one person at least online. It was 2 a minute ago. So pop a question in and I'll respond to it if you have one. But otherwise, no, that's it. That's the update. Have a look at the Instagram, ebiketouringlife again, and you'll get lots of photos of what I'm talking about. And once I get home, I shall put some actual work in and do some videos for you. And they have nice illustrations and lots of handlebar footage. And I think I'm going to have a lot of good footage, basically, because it's been pretty good. It's Fantastic cycling. I would recommend it. Nothing really I regret about doing it. The Camino route it's a little debatable because all the bloody pilgrims getting in the way. So there'll be an argument from that point of view to do the opposite way around to what I've done. I go down the coast first, go south to Santiago, and then go back east from there. And the argument for that is that way you're cycling into them so they can see you coming. And I've been spending all my time going hola as an alert, and you still get a couple of them jumping out of their skin basically because they were previously walking with nobody visible anywhere around, and then suddenly there's a voice behind them. And I've experimented with different distances to the hola, and none of them have really solved the problem entirely. So that's one issue. And then the other issue with the Camino is that, yeah, the rough trails are annoying in sections, because if you've, like I hit one on a day that I was doing 100 kilometers and it ended with about 15 to 20 kilometers of really rough trail that you kind of could do. I don't know, you were doing 10 kilometers an hour on, you were bouncing around a lot. So, you know, it was kind of uncomfortable. You also had to focus because you didn't want to hit a particularly big or sharp rock and end up with a blowout. So it was exhausting like that. Now, there's not much that's like that. That particular section was, I think, a day out of Burgos. Again, when I put the videos together, I'll be able to be more specific about that and actually show you videos of what I meant. So that was one limitation. However, the big benefit of that Eurovelo 3 Camino route is this early in the year, when lots of other places are not particularly open, it's set up for, you know, pilgrims, tourists already. There's lots of places to eat and drink every few kilometers because they're walking it. So you know, you can choose to cycle past many places before you make a choice. A good tip is don't choose the place that's on the edge of town when the pilgrims first arrive, because they've got a real captive market and they tend to have higher prices and lower standards. Declan, any punctures along the way? No. Now, I did get new puncture-proof tyres put on the bike before I set off, specifically to minimise the chances of punctures. And I swear by puncture-proof tyres. I've done, like, in all my touring, I haven't had a single puncture. I feel, you know, I'm cursing myself in saying that. And in all the rest of the cycling I've done on the electric bike, which is 17,000 kilometers so far, I still haven't had a puncture on it. Right. And on my old school manual bike, which I commute on, I put puncture-proof tires on that 8 years ago, decade ago, and I haven't had any punctures. So I would say the extra weight is, if you're touring it, and particularly if you're touring on an e-bike anyway, it's well worth the hassle. The only thing I'd say is, it's been so long since I've had a puncture, I've lost faith in my ability to repair one, but I do have a spare tube and a repair kit. And at the end of the day, I could get a taxi to a bicycle shop if I got completely stuck. Although some places here that taxi might be a good distance away. Yeah, you know, it is impressive. It's well worthwhile. In terms of repair stuff, I have a couple of those emergency chain links in case I break a chain. I've never put one of those on, so the thing that concerns me is that with that sort of problem, it's probably going to happen to you at the end of the day when you're exhausted anyway, and you're kind of trying to work out how something goes together. But then maybe you can do it well enough to get you out of the immediate crisis and to the next sizable town or whatever. And I have a little fold-out toolkit that's got bits and pieces. The one thing I have used on previous tours, and I think are an absolute necessity, are cable ties. Cable ties are great, particularly when I do my favourite trick of not being careful enough with the fully loaded bike on the bike stand, and I snap the bike stand. I've done that twice. Bike stand's good for 25 kilos, but when I've got the bike loaded, it's more than that. When I put it on even ground and then I make the mistake of leaning on it, the bolts can snap. So I'm much more careful this trip than not doing that. Yeah, anyone else got any question? I can see 3 people are now on. What part of Spain am I in now? I'm basically, if you look at a map, I'm on the very northwestern tip of Spain. So the bit that's sticking up into the Bay of Biscay, in a small town, I think it's called Cibero or something. I'm actually quite bad at knowing where I am at any point, because I had pre-routed all the maps, and basically each route leads directly to the hotel I booked. So I just follow the instructions, kind of turn left, turn right. You've arrived at your destination. And yes, Galicia, yes. Very northeast of Galicia. An interesting aside actually on the Galician thing is spring in Ireland, I'm allergic to hay fever, to something that's in the air, something's pollinating. And typically when I go off on holiday somewhere else, it vanishes, which is exactly what happened when I arrived in Bilbao, and it kept vanishing all the way till I got to Galicia. And then I started sneezing, and I thought, oh God, I'm coming down with a cold. Oh, hi. I'm coming down with a cold, and I was going, oh, that'll be a pain in the ass. But then I realized, nope, it's whatever does me back home is catching me here as well. And that's why I've been hay feverish, which is getting a bit off topic. I like Galicia, lots of good food, spectacular scenery. The one disadvantage has been when I came off the Camino route, because I wanted to go to a dolmen, and I ended up doing a lot of distance on a lot of farmland that nobody goes to. Mountains, well, hilly anyway, very, very pretty, but everybody seems to just let their dogs roam the streets. So I had 2 occasions where I got major ambushes by village dogs, where a couple of them would meet me at the entrance to the village, start barking, follow me through the village, and then there'd be 3 or 4 waiting for me to come around the corner. I'd be like, whoa. Not any problem. None of them actually tried to bite me. I think they're all just terribly excited. But that was something that didn't happen at all on the Camino route, because I presume people have their dogs put away and don't let them out to bite the tourists. What else can I tell you about it? That's probably, my spontaneous ramble aspect has kind of come to all that. So yeah, as I said, I'll edit and upload videos when I return. Might have time to put some together on the ferry. It's a long crossing. Oh, ferry's good, by the way, so I'd recommend that. That's it. So eBike Touring Life on Instagram. Have a look. I think I have 11 quite detailed day-by-day accounts, and if you watch my stories, you'll see during the day I'm posting live photos, mostly occasional bit of video from the side of the road. But anyway, for the people who tuned in, thanks for tuning in. And for the rest of us that are looking at this later, do the usual thumbs up, share, add a comment, particularly comment actually. I think I've comments turned on. Then I will respond to any additional questions people have. So thank you.